If you're not cheating, you have nothing to hide. The cameras will prove me right, my fiancé said after secretly hiring a TV crew to follow me. I signed every release form, went to work, and let the cameras do the rest. When the hotel footage filled the screen, she slowly set her coffee down, her jaw tightened, and she reached for the camera. That was Vanessa, my fiancée of 8 months. She set it across our kitchen table on a Tuesday night with a stack of release forms sitting next to the pasta, already organized, already tabbed with little orange sticky arrows pointing to the signature lines. She had been planning this for 3 weeks. There's a specific kind of betrayal that happens when someone decides you're guilty before they ever ask you a single question. I signed every page of those release forms that night. Every one. I signed them because I already knew something Vanessa didn't, that the cameras she had spent 3 weeks arranging to follow me were going to see everything clearly, including her. Let me back up. My name is Ulysses Carter. I'm 33 years old, and I work as a project coordinator for Meridian Construction Group, which means I spend most of my professional life reading structural blueprints, running load calculations, and finding the specific number in a column of numbers that doesn't belong. It's not glamorous work. It requires patience, precision, and the ability to sit with a problem until you understand it completely before you touch it. Those things are not separate from who I am. They are who I am. Vanessa Hartley and I had been together for 3 years before the engagement. She's a marketing manager at an advertising agency downtown, smart, driven, and good at reading a room. When things were good between us, they were very good. She has a talent for making ordinary evenings feel deliberate, like she had been thinking about them in advance. In the early years, that quality felt like affection. I know now it was also habit. Vanessa plans things. She plans them carefully and alone, and she always makes sure the plan is far enough along before anyone else hears about it. In 3 years together, I had seen this quality directed outward toward dinner reservations, toward career moves, toward vacation itineraries. I had never thought to ask whether she might turn it inward, toward us. The trouble started, in a way I could see, about 14 months before that Tuesday dinner. My company had taken on a major infrastructure project, a mixed-use development on the south side of the city, compressed timeline, city inspector's office with very specific documentation requirements. I began staying later at the office. Some nights I didn't get home until 9 or 10. I texted Vanessa before I left each evening. I called from the car. I wasn't hiding anything because there was nothing to hide. The first sign I noticed was the phone. I would set it face up on the counter when I came home, just habit, and within a few minutes, it would be face down. Once, I came out of the shower and found her standing at the kitchen counter with my phone in her hand, the screen lit. She looked up and said, "You have a message from Craig." Craig Okafor was my colleague. The message was about a materials delivery schedule. I took the phone from her and didn't say anything, because I didn't know yet how to say the right thing in that situation. I dried my hair and got dressed, and we had dinner and pretended the evening was normal. We were both quite good at that by then. The second sign was a Friday afternoon 3 months later. I was at a site inspection on the east side of the city, hard hat on, when I turned around and saw Vanessa's car parked across the street. She saw me see her. She pulled away without waving. That evening, she said she'd been running errands in the area and thought she'd stop by. The site was not in an area you pass through on the way to anywhere. I didn't press it. By February of this year, Vanessa had begun checking the location sharing on our shared account, which I could see in the notification log. I didn't turn it off. I had nothing to hide. That was the same week she made contact with the production company. I didn't know that yet. I didn't find out until she put the release forms on the table. I remember the kitchen light that night, the yellow overhead, one we kept meaning to replace with something warmer. The pasta was cold. Vanessa slid the forms across the table and folded her hands in her lap and said, "A crew is going to follow you for a week, starting tomorrow morning." She said it the way you'd read a verdict. Then, she said, "I've been watching you come home later and later for 14 months and you still haven't told me what's actually going on. I'm done waiting for you to be honest with me." She said, "I know you're not going to like this, but I had to do something. I couldn't keep sitting here not knowing." That last part, I understood. If Vanessa had genuinely believed I was deceiving her, the fear inside that belief would have been real. I'm not saying she wasn't in pain. I'm saying she didn't ask me a single question before she signed a contract with a television production company to follow me with cameras for a week. What I felt in that moment was not anger. Anger would have been easier. What I felt was something cooler and more specific, the sensation of a lens clicking into focus, the way a number that doesn't fit suddenly tells you everything about the column it came from. I looked at Vanessa across the table, at the careful way she had assembled that stack of papers, the weeks of planning done in silence, and something inside me went very quiet. I said, "Did you read the full contract?" She said, "Of course I did." She had not read the full contract. I picked up the pen and signed every page. I met Derek Walsh on the first morning of filming. He was waiting outside the Meridian building in a white production van with 2 cameras on tripods and a crew member running audio checks. Derek was in his early 40s, methodical in the way certain professionals get when they have been doing the same thing long enough to have stopped being surprised by most versions of it. He shook my hand and said, "Standard pre-interview first, then we'll follow you through your day. Just go about your routine." We sat in a conference room on the second floor and Derek ran through logistics. Halfway through, he said something almost offhand, the kind of thing you say when you assume the other person already knows it. He said, "Just so you know, we always run secondary coverage on both parties. 4-camera protocol. Network requirement since season 3. We've actually caught the accuser a few times." He said it and moved on to the next item on his clipboard without looking up. I sat there for a moment after he said it. I thought about Vanessa and the signed contract folded in a folder on our kitchen counter. I thought about her Tuesday afternoons, which she had mentioned in passing twice as personal time. I thought about a name, Todd Simmons, her colleague from the agency's strategy team, that had come up in her work stories with a frequency I had registered and quietly filed away without examining too closely, the way you set aside a number that doesn't add up until you are ready to look at the full column. Derek looked up from his clipboard and said, "Any questions?" I said, "No. I'm ready." I went to work. I did everything I always do, wore my hard hat, ran my meetings, ate lunch with Craig Okafor and Ben Larson in the break room, and talked about nothing in particular. I came home at reasonable hours. I did all of this for 5 days, and none of it for the cameras. By Thursday afternoon, the secondary unit had stopped following me to the job site. The van was gone when I came out of a meeting at 2 o'clock. I didn't ask Derek about it. I already had a reasonable theory about where they were instead. All I had to do was wait. And I am, as I have mentioned, very good at that. 10 days after the filming ended, Derek Walsh called on a Wednesday morning and asked if I could come to the production office for a scheduled playback review. Both parties present, standard process. He gave me an address. A glass building on the west side of downtown, 2nd floor. The building had industrial carpet in the hallway, the color of old concrete. The conference room had 2 flat screens on one wall and 4 folding chairs around a narrow table. A small production camera sat on a tripod in the corner, its red indicator light burning steady. The space smelled like recycled air and carpet cleaner, and the specific sealed-in quiet of a room where people have been having difficult conversations for years. Vanessa was already there when I arrived. She had her jacket on and her coffee cup in both hands, and she was sitting very straight, positioned the way someone sits when they believe they are about to be proven right. There was something proprietary about how she occupied that chair, a readiness that had a history behind it, weeks of preparation behind it. Carrie Donnelly sat beside her, mutual colleague from the agency, brought as a witness for the reveal. Derek came in behind me, set a folder on the table, and sat across from us. He said, "We're starting with secondary coverage footage. The secondary team documents both parties' activities during the filming week. Everything that follows is covered under the release agreement." He picked up the remote. I want to describe Vanessa's face across the next few minutes, because I have thought about it a great deal since. Before Derek pressed play, composed. Both hands on the coffee cup, shoulders level, chin slightly up. The expression of someone who has already decided what they are about to see, who, in fact, commissioned what they are about to see. She had arranged all of this. The calls, the contract, the crew schedule, the orange-tabbed release forms. Whatever appeared on that monitor had come entirely from her. I believe she understood that. I don't think she had thought through what it meant for what it would show. On the monitor, a hotel lobby appeared. Marble floor. Revolving door. Check-in desk to the left. The timestamp in the bottom corner read Tuesday, 2:17 in the afternoon. Camera angle from above the entrance, angled slightly downward. Vanessa's right hand went very still on the coffee cup. 2 figures came through the revolving door. Vanessa and Todd Simmons, her colleague from the strategy team, whose name had come up in her stories with a frequency I had noted and set aside without pressing. They crossed the lobby together toward the elevator bank, unhurried, no bags, no folders, no laptops. They did not look like two colleagues attending an off-site meeting. Derek paused the footage. He said, "Can you identify the individuals in this recording?" The room was quiet. The air conditioning made a low, steady sound. Vanessa set her coffee cup on the table with both hands, very carefully, the way you set something down when you cannot fully trust your grip. Her jaw had tightened. Her eyes remained on the screen, but she was no longer seeing what was on it. She was somewhere further back, running a calculation that had only one answer and was arriving at it now. She said, "That's from a hotel." Derek said, "Yes." The secondary team followed your standard Tuesday afternoon routine for 4 of the 5 filming days. Carrie Donnelly had not moved since the footage appeared. Now she stood, slowly, put her jacket over her arm in a single careful motion. She said, "I'm going to wait outside." She said it quietly, not looking at either of them, and she opened the door and pulled it closed behind her without hurrying. Through the glass panel beside the door, I could see her standing in the corridor with her back against the wall, looking at nothing. Derek said, "We have 412 minutes of secondary footage from the week. This segment is 12 minutes into Tuesday's coverage." He said it the way you state a fact about a load-bearing wall, the same flat certainty whether anyone wants to hear it or not. The footage continues for another 47 minutes on Tuesday alone. I did not speak. I didn't need to. The image on the screen was paused on a hotel lobby at 2:17 on a Tuesday afternoon, and it was doing everything that needed to be done. Vanessa looked at me for the first time since the footage began. Her face had moved through 3 separate versions of itself in the preceding 3 minutes. The composed readiness before, the arrested stillness when her hand stopped on the cup, and now this a controlled blankness I recognized from construction sites, the expression people wear when a structure has failed, and they are already calculating who else in the room knows it. She held my eyes for 3 seconds. Then she looked back at the table. She reached across and pressed her palm flat over the small production camera on the tripod at the end of the table. Lens completely covered. She said, "I don't want to be filmed anymore." Her voice was even, almost quiet. She said it a second time. The red indicator light stayed on. The camera kept recording. Carrie called me at 7 that evening, still in the parking garage below the building. She gave me the account of what happened after I left. Vanessa asking Derek to suppress the footage, Derek reading her the relevant clause in the release agreement one more time, Vanessa saying the forms weren't supposed to work this way. Carrie said, "I didn't know what to tell her." A pause. I'm not sure there was anything to tell her. I thanked Carrie. That evening, I called my attorney. The following morning, I spoke to the leasing office. I filed the paperwork that needed filing and removed the location sharing access from the family plan. I had a project delivery deadline at the end of the week, and I focused on that. There is always a next step when you are willing to look for it. Vanessa sent a text the morning after the session. It said she had been scared and had made a terrible decision, and she needed me to understand that what she did came from fear, not malice, and that she hoped I could find a way to see her as someone who had acted out of love, even badly. I read it once, completely, from the first word to the last. Then I put my phone in my jacket pocket and drove to the office. 3 days after that, my mother, Eleanor Carter, called from 40 minutes north of the city. She said, "Vanessa called me." A pause. "She wanted me to tell you she's sorry and that she made a terrible mistake and she wants a chance to explain herself." My mother is not a person who inserts herself into situations she doesn't fully understand, and she is not a person who relays messages she doesn't believe in. She told me she had explained to Vanessa that she thought that was something Vanessa needed to say directly, in her own words, in her own time. That was the end of Vanessa's attempt to use my mother as a relay station. What came next was harder to watch. Not because it changed anything, but because I could see her working, and the work was going in exactly the wrong direction. 2 weeks after the session, Vanessa posted in the group message thread that Carrie, 2 other colleagues, and I had shared for the past year announcements, restaurant recommendations, the ordinary logistics of people who know each other. The post said she wanted to address some recent misunderstandings and asked for privacy and compassion during a difficult time. She deleted it within 4 hours. Carrie sent me a screenshot at 10:15 that evening. I looked at it for a moment and went back to the budget spreadsheet I had been reviewing. I had a meeting in the morning and the numbers were not going to look at themselves. The move that closed the last remaining door was the formal written request Vanessa sent to Derek Walsh asking him to suppress all secondary footage, citing a right to privacy and documented emotional distress. Derek forwarded her the relevant paragraph from the release agreement. The clause, he noted in a brief email to me, was the same one that protected individuals recorded without their initial knowledge from having footage used against their interests, specifically the clause that Vanessa had asked to be included when she was negotiating show's original terms. She had argued for it. She had pushed for its inclusion to protect herself from what she had assumed would be my attempts to leverage the footage against her. The clause she had asked for was the one that guaranteed the footage could be used. Derek's email to me said only. She may not have read the full document. I read that sentence twice, slowly, and then I archived the email and got back to work. 6 weeks after the filming ended, I was in a planning meeting at Meridian when Craig Okafor came in at lunch with his phone already unlocked in his hand. He sat down across from me and set the phone on the table and said, "You should probably know this." It was a screenshot of Todd Simmons' social media, 4 sentences announcing that he and a person he did not name were no longer together. He cited a need for honesty and space going forward. The post was 3 days old. Craig picked the phone up, put it back in his pocket, and opened his lunch container. We talked about the project timeline for the rest of the hour. I drove home that evening with the radio off. There is a stretch of the highway about 6 miles before my exit where construction barriers narrow both lanes to one, and the traffic slows to a crawl. I sat in that slowdown for 12 minutes, watching the brake lights in front of me. I didn't check my messages. I didn't run numbers in my head for the next morning. I just sat there and felt something quiet settle somewhere in my chest, not quite relief, not quite satisfaction, but close to both, specific and low and private, the feeling of a column of figures that has finally resolved. Every number in its correct place. Nothing left to look for. That was all. I let it be exactly what it was and nothing more. I had a site visit in Seattle the following month. I booked the flight on a Thursday evening, sitting at my kitchen table with a half-eaten container of takeout and the window open 2 inches. I packed a carry-on. I did not open the shared calendar that Vanessa and I had kept for 2.5 years. I did not know if it still existed. I did not find out. I had a different calendar now, and it had everything I needed on it. My mother called on a Sunday morning in early October while I was reading at my kitchen table. The apartment was quiet. 6 months ago, I had needed the television on in the background to get the day started. Now I didn't, she said. Someone told me something this week, and I thought you should hear it from me. Her neighbor knew someone in Vanessa's building not close, just the kind of connection that forms when people have lived in the same general radius for 20 years. Word was that Vanessa had moved to a smaller apartment on the north side of town. That Todd Simmons had been seen out with someone from his office in the weeks since the separation post. That the mutual friends Vanessa had counted on had, one by one, stopped reaching out after the deleted group post. Carrie had told me a version of this already, a few weeks earlier, without commentary, just one sentence, just what she had observed from a distance. I looked out the window across from my table. The courtyard below had a single tree in it, still mostly leafed in October, and the light coming through it was the plain, ordinary light of a Sunday morning. No particular color, no particular quality. Just light, my mother said. She called me one more time. Last month. She said it carefully, the way she says things she has been carrying for a while. She said she had spent 3 weeks building the case, calling the production company, reviewing the schedule, coordinating the crew call times, going over every clause in the contract. A pause. She said she never once stopped to think about where her own cameras were pointed. I looked at the tree in the courtyard. A window was open across the way, and I could hear water running somewhere in the building, 2 floors up or down, someone starting their morning. My mother said. She told me she built the case against herself. I thought about the orange tabbed release forms and the way Vanessa had stacked them next to the cold pasta. I thought about the 3 weeks she had spent in silence, building the mechanism, reviewing it, convinced it would produce the outcome she had already decided on. I thought about her sitting straight in that folding chair at the production office, both hands on the coffee cup, ready to watch someone else's week unfold on the monitor. I thought about the exact moment her hand went still on the cup, the specific, particular quality of that stillness, a hand that had been holding something and suddenly understood it could no longer hold it the same way. I thought about Derek Walsh saying 412 minutes in the same level, unhurried tone he used for every other fact in that room, as though the number were no different from a delivery date or a code reference, as though it were simply the next piece of information on his clipboard. I said, "How did she sound?" My mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Tired." I sat with that. I said, "Okay." I meant it as a complete sentence, which it was. The Seattle project wrapped on a Thursday, and I flew home that evening. I landed in the early evening, took the train from the airport, walked the 3 blocks to my building. The apartment was exactly as I had left it, same chairs, same light, same quiet. I made coffee. I opened the window. The city was doing what it always does, ordinary, ongoing, indifferent to whether I had been watching. There are release forms in a manila envelope in the bottom drawer of my desk at Meridian. I have not opened that drawer since I put them there. I don't intend to throw them away, and I don't intend to look at them often. They are just a document that exists, the way certain things exist when they are finished, not erased, not preserved on purpose, just done. The cameras proved one of us right.